My name is Lisa Brennan. I'm 26 now. But this story really begins when I was 17, right at that fragile edge between being a kid and stepping into the world. Back then, I thought I was standing on solid ground. I thought my parents were preparing me for a future I could count on. Before we get into it, if you've ever felt let down by the people who were supposed to protect you, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Because this story, it's about trust broken quietly, over years, about lies that hide in plain sight, about money that vanished, and the truth I wasn't supposed to find. And most of all, it's about the moment I realized I wasn't going to be a victim. I was raised to believe one thing, that if I worked hard, kept my head down, and did everything right, I'd be rewarded. Growing up, my parents always said the same thing when it came to college. Focus on your grades, Lisa. We'll handle the rest. And I believed them. Why wouldn't I? My dad, Mark, worked in logistics, mid-level manager for a shipping company. Nothing fancy, but stable. My mom, Ellen, worked part-time at a dental office. She was the one who kept track of everything. Appointments, bills, budgets. She was always writing things down in a little black notebook she never let out of her sight. Whenever I asked about college, like when my friends started touring campuses or comparing financial aid packages, they'd brush it off with a warm eye, smile, and a pat on the head. "We've been saving for this since you were a baby," my mom would say. "You just worry about that GPA, sweetheart," my dad would add, his voice calm and confident. And so I did. I studied hard. I stayed out of trouble. I skipped parties, skipped sleep, skipped anything that didn't get me closer to that future they promised. By the time I was a junior, I had a 4.2 GPA and a short list of dream schools: UCLA, Berkeley, maybe even Columbia if I pushed hard enough. But here's what they don't tell you about growing up in a house built on quiet lies. You don't see the cracks until you're standing right on top of one. And it gives way. Senior year came fast. In the fall, I started applying to schools. I didn't expect a full ride. Not for the places I was aiming at. But with my grades and the way my parents always talked, I figured we had a plan. Then came the acceptance letters. 3 schools, 2 of them out of state, 1 local but still pricey. I was over the moon. I remember sitting at the dinner table, hands trembling as I read them out loud. My dad grinned and raised a glass of sparkling cider. To Lisa, our future lawyer. But my mom, she looked tight, like her smile was being held in place by pins. She nodded, said, "We're proud of you, baby," and then glanced at my dad like they needed to talk. That night, I heard them whispering behind their bedroom door. Low voices, urgent. And something told me, not for the first time, that not everything was as secure as they'd made it seem. The next morning, my mom sat me down. No preamble, no warm mug of cocoa or comforting smile. Just, "Lisa, about college." I felt it in my gut before she even finished the sentence. "We've run into some financial difficulties. The college fund we talked about, it's not quite where it should be." I just stared at her. "What do you mean?" "I thought you said—" "I know what we said." She cut me off. But things changed. The economy, medical bills, life. We're going to need to figure out some other options. Maybe community college, at least for the first year. My mind was spinning. I had done everything right. I had held up my end of the bargain. "So, there's no college fund?" I asked, my voice cracking. She avoided my eyes. "We tried, Lisa, but things got complicated." Complicated. That's the word she used. Not gone, not spent, not stolen, just complicated. I cried in my room that night. Not like a child, loud and messy, but quiet, shaking sobs into my pillow. I didn't want them to hear. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of thinking I couldn't handle it, but something inside me shifted. A small, cold voice whispered, "They lied to you." And once that thought took root, I couldn't unsee it. The next few weeks were a blur. I pretended like I was fine. I went through the motions, school, homework, the usual. But I started noticing things, clues, inconsistencies, like how my mom's new leather purse didn't match the story of tight finances, or how my dad suddenly had a new set of golf clubs in the garage, or how they were planning a weekend getaway to Napa Valley, to distress. And then there was that little black notebook. One night, while they were out grocery shopping, I found it in the kitchen drawer. My heart pounded in my ears as I opened it. At first, it looked innocent. Grocery lists, doctor appointments, school, events. But then, deeper into the pages, financial records, withdrawals, dates, amounts. One entry stood out: Lisa's college fund, closed July 12th. Remaining balance, $42,686, transferred to joint household account. I froze. July 12th was 6 months before college applications even opened. They hadn't just used the money. They'd decided, deliberately, not to tell me. They'd planned to lie. I couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, every breath feeling like betrayal filling my lungs. The next morning, I confronted them. I placed the notebook on the kitchen table like evidence in a courtroom. "Where's the money?" I asked calmly. Too calmly. My dad frowned. My mom's face went pale. "You went through my things?" she asked, defensive. "You lied to me for years." I shot back. "Don't turn this around." There was silence. Heavy. Awkward. Finally, my dad spoke. "We needed the money, Lisa. There were things we couldn't tell you. Things you wouldn't understand." I wanted to scream. "Try me," I said. But they didn't. They just stood there. Two strangers wrapped in shame and excuses. That was the moment everything changed. Not when I found out the money was gone, but when I realized they never intended to tell me the truth. They didn't believe I deserved to know, and I knew then. If I wanted to get out, if I wanted to make something of my life, I was on my own. But what I didn't know yet, what I'd come to learn much later, was where that money actually went. Because the household account? That was just the surface, and what was underneath was so much worse. I thought the worst part was finding out the college fund was gone. Turns out, that was just the surface. Because once I knew they had lied, deliberately lied, something snapped inside me. I stopped asking for permission, stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt. If they wanted to act like I didn't deserve the truth, fine. I'd go get it myself. The first real clue came from my mom's notebook. There was a bank account number scribbled next to the entry about the transfer, half covered in doodles and budget notes. It looked like a mistake, like something she didn't mean to write down fully. But it was enough. That weekend, I borrowed her laptop when she went upstairs to take a nap. Her password was my birthday. They trusted me so little, they didn't even bother to hide it. Inside her banking portal, there it was, joint household account, just like the note said. And as I scrolled through months of transactions, my stomach turned. No tuition. Payments, no financial emergencies, just stuff. A $1,200 charge at a luxury spa. $3,000 to a company I didn't recognize. Westfield Restoration and Design. Weekend hotel bookings. Online purchases. A few wire transfers marked GG. Who the hell was GG? Then I saw it. $8,500. Wired to an account under the name Jillian Grant. I had never heard that name before. Not a friend, not a relative. But my dad's email showed up next to the note. Final balance cleared, Mark Brennan. Something was very, very wrong. I went down a rabbit hole that week, skipped classes, skipped sleep. I looked up Jillian Grant. She wasn't hard to find. Thanks to her very public Instagram, she was 29. A real estate consultant, judging by her bio. Blonde, tanned, expensive sunglasses, and even more expensive clothes. One picture made my throat close up. It was her and my dad in front of a wine bar, his arm around her waist, smiling, relaxed, like he wasn't stealing my future with every grin. The caption said, "Weekend escape with M. That was the moment." I understood. This wasn't about hard times. Wasn't about unexpected bills or sacrifices for the family. My dad had emptied my college fund to play sugar daddy to some woman half his age. And my mom? She knew. She had to. No one writes joint account if they don't know what's going on. No one just forgets $42,000 disappearing unless they've agreed to let it go. I sat in the dark for hours that night, the screen burning my eyes. My future, stolen for a fake second life. A fantasy built on lies and someone else's dreams. Mine. But here's where things shifted. I stopped being shocked. I started being strategic. If they wanted secrets, I could play that game too. If they wanted to lie to my face, I'd make sure the next time they blinked, the world would already be different. So I started collecting. Screenshots, bank statements, dates. I printed them out, highlighted connections, tracked every large transaction. The hotel in Napa, booked, under my dad's name, paid for the same weekend I'd had my SAT tutoring session canceled to save money. The restoration company turned out to be a boutique interior design firm in the next town over, run by Jillian Grant's sister. Everything was connected. Every dollar had a name and a reason. Just none of those reasons had anything to do with me. One night, my mom caught me at the printer. I froze. The statement was still warm in my hands. She stared at me for a long time, eyes narrowed. Then said, "Are you seriously still digging into this?" I looked at her, looked through her. "You knew," I said. She didn't. "Flinch! You let him do it. You let him spend the money I trusted you with. You both looked me in the eye and lied." For a moment, she looked like she might cry, but then something hardened in her face. "You don't understand how marriage works," she said flatly. "Sometimes you make compromises. Sometimes you keep peace where you can." I felt sick. "You call that peace?" "What do you want me to say, Lisa?" she snapped. "That your father has made mistakes? That maybe I've made some too? That life isn't fair and we tried to protect you the best we could?" I couldn't answer, because none of that was protection. It was betrayal dressed up as patience. She walked away. Didn't speak to me for 2 days. I started saving every cent I could. Scholarship essays, local contests, even applying for jobs I had no time for. But what mattered more was what I was building behind the scenes. A file, a full dossier. I even found a legal aid organization that specialized in education fraud and parental mismanagement of custodial funds. They confirmed what I'd suspected. The money in that account had been under my name as a minor, technically safeguarded for educational use, but since it had been transferred by my parents before I turned 18, the law was murky. "You might not be able to sue them," the advisor told me. "But if the paper trail is clean, you might be able to expose them, especially if you can show malicious intent or fraud." And that word stuck with me, expose, because what I wanted, more than the money, more than justice, was for them to feel what I felt, To know what it was like to have the truth walk in like a wrecking ball and flatten your whole world. The final blow came accidentally. I overheard my dad on the phone one night. He was in the garage. Didn't know. I was home early from tutoring. "You know I can't leave her yet," he said. "She'll take the house, and Lisa's too close to finding out already." Silence, then laughter. His. "Yeah, she's smart. Too smart sometimes." Got it from me. I recorded the call from the crack in the garage door. 37 seconds. Clear voice, clear admission. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I had power now. They took my future, but they just handed me something better. Leverage. If you'd seen me that fall, you'd have thought everything was fine. I still set the table, still said good morning, still smiled when my mom asked how school was going. I wore my nicest mask every day, but behind that smile I was sharpening. Knives. Because the truth is, when you grow up in a house built on lies, you become fluent in performance. You learn how to nod while you're screaming inside. By then, I knew more than they thought I did. I knew about the secret account. I knew about Jillian Grant and the wire transfers and the phone call in the garage. I even knew about the work trip. My dad had taken the previous winter, the one where he conveniently forgot his charger and didn't call home for 2 days. He was in Cabo, with her. I found the photos. They weren't even hidden well. Just tucked inside a shared Google Drive folder labeled Contracts 2019. One click. There he was, my father, shirtless by a pool, his arm draped around a woman who wasn't my mother, laughing like he didn't have a single regret in the world. So I smiled. Because now, I wasn't just angry, I had purpose. The first step was getting my own bank account. I told my mom I wanted to start learning how to manage money. She was so eager to believe I was moving on, she didn't even question it. She took me to the bank herself. I remember sitting across from the teller, signing papers while my mom scrolled through Facebook on her phone. She didn't even look up. I opened the account with $87. By the end of that semester, it had over $3,000. Scholarship rejections hurt. A lot of them came. But I kept writing, kept submitting. Eventually, small checks started arriving. $500 for an essay on resilience. $1,000 from a local business foundation. Not enough for college, not yet, but enough for an escape plan. At night, when the house was quiet, I'd sit at my desk with headphones in, researching community colleges, apartment listings, part-time jobs near campus. I even found a small school 2 states over that offered deferred tuition for students who agreed to work on campus. I applied in secret. Got in. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Meanwhile, I kept building the file. My dad's emails, my mom's notebook, screenshots of transactions, the phone call from the garage. I kept it all in a locked folder on a flash drive I wore as a necklace. To anyone else, it looked like a cheap accessory. To me, it was everything they'd tried to erase, and my proof that I wasn't crazy. Sometimes I'd stare at it in the mirror and whisper, "They don't win. Not this time." The tension at home was quiet, but thick. My mom stopped asking about college altogether. She acted like the subject didn't exist. My dad got more distant. He worked late, came home smelling like cologne that didn't belong to him. He still called me kiddo and asked about school, like we were playing pretend, and I played along. Because I needed time. There was a moment, right before Christmas, when I almost broke. We were putting up the tree, and my mom brought out an old ornament I made in kindergarten. It was a crooked felt star with my name written in glitter glue. She smiled like nothing had changed, said, "You always loved Christmas." And for a second, I wanted to scream. Wanted to throw the whole tree over and shout, "How dare you pretend? This is normal?" But I just nodded, hung the ornament, and walked outside into the freezing air, where I could cry without being seen. That's what betrayal does. It trains you to mourn in silence. Then came the dinner. A week before I was planning. To leave, my parents announced we were going out to a family dinner. No reason, just the three of us. I didn't like it. It felt rehearsed. The restaurant was a mid-tier steakhouse. Comfortable, loud enough to avoid eavesdropping. We sat in a booth. My dad ordered wine. They were both acting. My mom asked about my friends. My dad told a story about his coworker's dog. I barely touched my food. Then, halfway through dessert, my mom leaned in and said, "We've been thinking. Maybe it's time we revisit the college conversation." I blinked. My fork stopped midair. My dad chimed in. "We know things got off track, but maybe we rushed our decision. We want to help. We really do." I waited, because this wasn't an apology. This wasn't remorse. This was strategy. My mom added, "We can't give you everything you were expecting, but we might be able to contribute something, help you stay local, maybe commute." There it was. Control. They wanted to keep me nearby, keep me under their roof, under their thumb, manageable. I smiled, a perfect, tight, polite smile. "Thanks," I said. "That means a lot." But inside, I knew exactly what I was going to do. 2 days later, I packed a suitcase while they were out. I took what I needed: clothes, my laptop, the flash drive, a folder with my college acceptance and student ID. I left. A note on the kitchen table. "I'm not running away. I'm walking toward something better. You lied. You took what wasn't yours. You won't get to take my future, too." Lisa, I got on the 6:45 a.m. bus out of town. No one stopped me. I cried for the first hour, not because I was scared, but because I felt free. For the first time in years, I wasn't acting. Wasn't pretending to be okay just to keep the peace. I didn't have a lot, but I had myself. And after everything they'd done, that felt like a victory. The first week away felt like waking up after years of being sedated. I slept in a narrow dorm bed that creaked every time I rolled over, next to a window that didn't quite close all the way. But every morning I woke up and thought, this is mine, my air, my space, my silence. I shared a room with a girl named Ari, who had blue hair and made jewelry out of safety pins. She offered me half a granola bar the day I arrived and said, "You look like someone who needs a reset." She had no idea. We weren't close yet, but I liked her. She asked questions without pressing too hard, and she respected silence. I got a part-time job at the campus bookstore, $10.75 an hour, mostly folding sweatshirts and restocking shelves. It wasn't glamorous, but I'd never felt prouder cashing a paycheck. For the first time, I didn't owe anyone for where I stood, but peace doesn't last forever, especially when you leave behind a family that thrives on control. It started with emails. At first, they were just from my mom. Subject: "We're worried." Message: "Lisa, please respond. We're not angry. We just want to talk. Are you safe?" I didn't answer. 3 days later. Subject: "This isn't like you. You're acting impulsively. We understand you're upset, but leaving like, this is not the solution. Please come home." Then came the texts. Mom: "Lisa, your father is sick with worry." Dad: "Kiddo, please, just call. We can work this out." I stared at those messages for a long time. It was almost funny. They were the ones shaken now. They were the ones blindsided, but none of those messages included the words I needed. "I'm sorry. You were right. We lied." It wasn't guilt reaching out, it was panic, and I wasn't interested in being pulled back by the same rope they'd always used, guilt disguised as concern. Then the tone shifted. The messages started sounding more calculated. Mom, we spoke to your aunt. She agrees you're overreacting. Dad, there are ways to handle this without tearing the family apart. I didn't know which aunt they meant. I hadn't spoken to any of them. I figured they were lying. But what really hit me was that phrase, tearing the family apart. As if I'd broken something. As if I had fractured our family just by stepping away from the mess they created. The gaslighting never ended. It just changed forms. One afternoon in February, I was on break from work, sitting on a crate in the bookstore's back room eating peanut butter crackers, when my phone buzzed, a voicemail from my father. I didn't want to listen, but I did. His voice was slower than usual, tired. Lisa, I don't know what your mother told you, but you're not getting the full story. We had reasons for what we did, things you don't understand. I'm asking you to come home, not just for us, but for yourself. Don't throw away everything we've built, please. I played it twice, and I almost laughed. What we've built? What had they built exactly? A house with no truth. A trust fund that never existed. A web of secrets spun tight enough to strangle. A future. No, I wasn't going back. I didn't respond to the voicemail, but I did start saving everything. Every message, every email, every missed call, because something told me they weren't done. And I wanted a record. The next twist came from a direction I didn't expect. My mother showed up at the college. It was a Thursday afternoon. I'd just gotten out of an intro psych lecture and was walking back to my dorm when I saw her, standing outside the campus cafe in a beige coat, clutching a purse like it was armor. She spotted me. Raised a hand. I froze. Everything inside me screamed, "Turn around, run," but I didn't, because I needed to know what she wanted that was worth this. I walked over, slowly, arms crossed. "Lisa," she said, "you look thin." I didn't answer. She exhaled hard, like she was the one holding the pain. "I just want to talk." I let her talk. She said she missed me, that the house felt empty, that my dad was not himself lately. She mentioned my cousins were asking about me, that it was so hard to explain everything. But again, no apology, no responsibility. When I finally spoke, I kept my voice low. "You didn't come here for me. You came here for you." She blinked. "That's not true." "It is," I said. "You want the appearance of a family, not the truth of one." She didn't argue, just said, "You're still my daughter." And I said, "Then maybe you should have treated me like one." She left without making a scene, but the damage was done. That visit rewired something in me. I realized they wouldn't stop, not because they loved me, but because they hated the loss of control. To people like my parents, losing a daughter isn't the tragedy. It's losing the narrative. And I was ruining theirs. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I got a notice from the bank. Someone had tried to access my old joint account, the one I had with them before I left. I'd emptied it, closed it, changed my passwords. But still, they tried. I went to the campus tech desk, asked a guy named Theo to help me secure everything. He set me up with two-factor authentication, encrypted storage, even showed me how to track access attempts. And then he looked at me and said, "You're not the first person to run from a family that didn't know what love meant." I didn't cry, but my hands shook for the rest of the day. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to survive them. I was going to expose them. Not with rage, not with fire, but with truth. With documents, with facts. With calm, undeniable receipts. Because they'd counted on my silence, and I'd given them enough of it. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind was racing, working through the mess my parents left behind. I'd always known they were secretive with money, but now I had proof. Real proof. Stacks of documents. Hidden away, emails I found on old devices, bank statements, receipts, and even some contracts I never should have been able to see. For months, I'd been collecting everything in a folder I called the file. It was growing, thickening, a quiet testament to every lie they told me, every promise they broke. And now, I knew what I had to do. I spent the weekend holed up in the tiny college library study room, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard as I organized the file. It was more than just numbers and paper. It was a story of betrayal, layered. In every transaction, every missing sum. I started writing a timeline. January 2012, college funds allocated for me, $20,000 deposited. February 2013, funds withdrawn by family emergency. No explanation. March 2014, large transfer to unknown account. Suspicious. Then the kicker. June 2015, Mom's secret vacation to the Bahamas, paid for with my college money. I stared at the screen in disbelief. How could they? The parents who promised to support my education had been spending my future on their luxuries. I had no illusions. This wasn't just about money. It was about power, about how they controlled my life by controlling my opportunities. But this time, I had control. I saved everything in multiple encrypted files, with backups on USB drives hidden in places no one would find them. Then, I made a plan. Step 1. Talk to a lawyer. I found a small legal aid clinic on campus that helped students with family disputes. I set up an appointment. The lawyer, Ms. Martinez, was sharp. No nonsense. She listened to my story carefully, nodding as I laid out the evidence. "This is serious," she said. "Financial abuse is real and it's damaging. If you have proof, you have a strong case." Her words felt like a lifeline. She helped me draft letters to the bank and financial institutions, requesting audits and investigations into the suspicious transactions. She warned me about pushing too hard too fast. "Families like yours don't just fold easily," she said. "You have to be strategic." Step 2. Reach out to people who might help. I thought about my cousins. Some were close to my parents, others not so much. I started carefully texting a few, hinting that I had information that could explain the secrets and silence. Most ignored me. Some warned me to stop, but one cousin, Elena, replied. She said she'd noticed weird things too. Money disappearing from family accounts, vacations booked in secret, and whispered arguments between my parents. We met at a coffee shop. She looked nervous but determined. "We can't let them keep doing this," she said, and just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Step 3. Prepare to confront them. I had the evidence. I had allies, but I also had fear. Fear of what they'd do when I hit them with the file. Would they deny it? Lie even harder? Cut me out completely? Or worse, try to ruin me? But I realized that living in fear was what they wanted all along, and I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. The night before I planned to send the first wave of legal notices, I sat in my dorm room, staring at the folder on my laptop. I thought about my parents, their smiles, their empty promises. And I thought about myself, how far I'd come since that 17-year-old girl who had no idea what was waiting behind closed doors. I whispered to the quiet room, "This ends now." The next day, I sent the letters, and I waited. The silence afterward was almost worse than their lies. Then, on the third day, the phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was cold. "We need to talk." I picked up steady. "This is your last chance." "Lisa," Her tone wasn't angry. It was warning. Threat. I smiled. Too late for that. When my mom said, "We need to talk," I knew the storm was coming. But what I wasn't ready for was how cold and calculated she sounded. That call wasn't a plea or an apology. It was a warning. A challenge. I had thrown the first punch, and now the gloves were off. In the days after the call, everything felt surreal. Like I was caught in a strange silence before a hurricane. The campus was the same. My classes continued. Life went on around me. But inside, everything was shifting. I spent hours pacing my small apartment, rereading emails, texts, letters from the lawyer. Elena was by my side more than ever, her messages a steady lifeline. She reminded me to stay focused, to keep records, to prepare for what was next. She told me, "This isn't just about money anymore. It's about you taking back control of your life." I had started hearing rumors. Friends told me my parents were spreading stories about me, how I was ungrateful, reckless, maybe even unstable. That stung more than I expected, but it didn't shake me. I knew the truth was on my side. One afternoon, I got a letter marked "Legal Notice." It was from my parents' lawyer. They claimed I was violating family privacy, threatening reputations, and demanded I stop all legal actions and delete the file. It was clear. They wanted me to back down. To forget about the money, the lies, the damage, but I didn't. I wrote back through my lawyer, firm and clear. This isn't about privacy. It's about justice. The hardest part was telling my little brother. He was just 15 and adored my parents. I didn't want to shatter his world, but I had to be honest. We met at a park near our childhood home. I sat on the bench, trying to keep my voice calm. "Jake, I found out some things about the money Mom and Dad promised for college." His eyes went wide. "What do you mean?" I swallowed hard. They weren't honest with me. They used it for other things. He looked confused, hurt. Why would they do that? I don't know, but I want to fix it. For both of us. He nodded slowly, the weight of it sinking in. Then came the confrontation. One chilly evening, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. They looked different, calmer, but with something sharp in their eyes. Mom's voice was soft but firm. "Lisa, this needs to end." I stood my ground. "It ends when you return what you stole. Not before." Dad scoffed. "You think you can come at us with your little file and win?" I didn't flinch. "I'm not here to win or lose. I'm here for the truth." The tension was electric. We circled each other with words like weapons. Mom tried to guilt me. "After everything we've done for you, you're tearing this family apart." I cut in, voice steady. "Not me. You did this when you lied. When you took what wasn't yours." For a moment there was silence, then Dad muttered something about not needing this drama, and they left. That night, I sat on my floor, surrounded by the file, and a strange feeling settled over me. This was bigger than I thought. They weren't just defending money. They were defending their whole world, and I was standing right in the pway, middle of it. But for the first time, I felt ready. Ready to fight. Ready to take back what was mine. And maybe, just maybe, to finally break free. The days after that confrontation felt like walking on a tightrope. Every text, every call, every interaction with my parents was charged with unspoken threats and fragile silences. I could tell they were digging in their heels. I wasn't just a daughter to them anymore. I was the enemy. One morning, I received an email that hit like a punch in the gut. It was from my university's financial aid office. They'd received an anonymous complaint claiming I'd falsified documents to secure funding. Suddenly, the money I was fighting for was being used against me. My heart raced. Was this another tactic? Were they trying to discredit me? I immediately forwarded the email to Ms. Martinez, my lawyer. She reassured me, but warned to prepare for a fight. This is going to get dirty, Lisa. Brace yourself. At school, whispers followed me down the halls. Friends I trusted looked at me differently. Some avoided me altogether. The isolation was painful, but I had Elena. She was my anchor, reminding me of why I was fighting. "We're exposing the truth," she said. "Don't let them win by breaking you." Then came the hardest moment. My little brother, Jake, called crying one night. "Lisa, Mom, and Dad. They told me you're trying to ruin the family, that you don't care about us." My chest tightened. "I do care, Jake. That's why I'm doing this, because they lied, and it's hurting us all." He was silent. "I just want us to be a family. Again, I wanted that too, but I knew sometimes families break before they heal." The breaking point came a week later. I was at the campus library when my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Stop now, Lisa, or you'll regret it." I froze. The threat was clear. I showed it to Elena and Ms. Martinez immediately. "We'll report it," Ms. Martinez said. But the fear lingered. Despite it all, I kept pushing forward. I gathered more evidence, interviewed family friends who had seen the truth, and compiled everything into a detailed report for the authorities. Each day, the walls around me seemed to close in, but I refused to back down, because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. One night, I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of everything pressing down. I looked at the photos on my walls, my childhood memories, happier times, and I whispered to myself, "This is the moment you become unstoppable." The morning I got the call from the investigator, I felt like my heart would burst. They told me the case was officially open. The authorities had found enough evidence to start a formal investigation into my parents' finances and the missing college funds. It was a mix of relief and dread. Relief, because finally, someone was listening. Dread, because this meant the war was far from over. News travels fast in small towns. Within days, my story was everywhere. Whispers in grocery stores, stares in the street, even a few messages online from strangers telling me to give up or be careful. But there were also messages of support. People who had seen through my parents' perfect facade and wanted me to succeed. The trial was brutal. My parents showed no remorse. They denied everything, twisting facts, accusing me of betrayal, and trying to paint themselves as victims. The courtroom was packed with family members, neighbors, and people who had watched this drama unfold for years. But the evidence spoke louder than their lies. Emails, bank statements, testimonies, it all painted a clear picture. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. My parents were ordered to repay the funds and were officially reprimanded for financial misconduct. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a mix of exhaustion and freedom. I wasn't just a kid anymore. I was someone who stood up, who fought for what was right. Jake hugged me afterward, tears in his eyes. "We're going to be okay now, right?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes, we are." But the real victory wasn't the money or the court ruling. It was reclaiming my voice, taking back my life. My relationship with my parents will never be the same. Maybe it never should be. But I'm done living in the shadow of their lies. I'm building my own future now. So if you're out there, feeling trapped by secrets or betrayal, know this: you have power. You have a voice. And sometimes, the hardest fight is the one that sets you free. This is my story. Thank you for listening.